What's up, Speed Demons and Drew? How is everybody today? So we're going to be talking about Fast 7, today. And just before we get into that, I'm going to just plug our socials real quick. Don't forget that we are called the Quarter Mile Podcast. That is on all of our social media except on TikTok. Because again, TikTok took us down for that or didn't really give us views, and it was just all weird. So now it's just Quarter Mile Podcast.
That'll teach them.
On TikTok, because we're different. Let's kick it into full swing with the live episode. We've got that in September.
Yeah, September 21st.
Yeah, so that is going to be our, which one is that? Is that
ninth episode.
Ninth
Fast 9, F9.
Mm-hmm. And that is going to be in Memphis,
Tennessee.
At the High Tone. If you guys have not gone to High Tone before, it is an awesome venue, by the way. Not just for podcast live shows like that. It is for live music shows. They didn't really ask us to plug it like that. But I have been to High Tone, so I highly recommend going.
They also do
there.
live comedy there every week, and they have really good chicken tenders.
Exactly, which Drew knows about both of those very well because he is a comedian, and you should check out his content as well.
Yeah, I'm very excited about the live episode recording. So anyone in Memphis or in West Tennessee that doesn't mind driving to Memphis, you can go to our Facebook or our Instagram, or if you're in a place where you can click on the links on this episode, we'll have it where you can go ahead and get tickets for the live episode recording at the High Tone. They're free. We've never done this before, so we don't know if people are coming. So we're making it as easy as possible to come. I mean, there'll be the opportunity to donate to the podcast if you want, but honestly, it's just for people that have enjoyed our podcast and enjoy Fast and Furious. I'm very excited because F9 is the movie. It's a tie between F9 and Fast 10 as to which one people hate more. So I'm very excited. But I feel like more people don't like F9, and so I'm very excited about us getting together and just giving people a safe space to talk to their trash. And I've already lined up 3 comedians from Memphis that are going to come and be part of the podcast
goody.
for us. So, and one of them, I won't tell you who they are until we're at the actual episode. But
so show up.
Yeah, but one of them I'm very excited about because he's never seen any of the Fast and Furiouses ever, and so I've given him very specific instructions to watch none of them. Except for 9 the night before we record, and then all I want is his impressions of debatably the worst movie of the series, and I just think it'll be a fun little whatever.
Interesting. So he's not going to get much context of certain things,
and that's going to make it so funny when he gives us his opinion of just the 9th movie.
I wonder how. I myself, because I can't go back and just let myself forget entirely all these movies. Even though, again, I did have to go back and rewatch things for details just because I was younger. I don't remember all of that. But, to not watch any of them, that's like going back and watching the last movie of, Hunger Games.
Yeah, absolutely.
And just being like, yeah.
And I feel like
that makes sense.
I feel like we've talked about this before with Fast and Furious. And this is at least my experience. Maybe it's your experience as well. But I love watching the movies and marathoning them all together because, sure, once you get to the later one, their thing is they get more ridiculous as they go. It's an intentional thing that the Fast and Furious people are doing. Mm-hmm. They always want to do one stunt that's better than the biggest one. Yeah, absolutely. And so, but the thing is this hits me that by 5, 6, and 7, and I feel like especially with this one at 7, when you're watching the crazy, ridiculous stunts, you no longer are like, that's not possible.
Right.
Like in this movie when we were watching them parachuting onto the bridge, I was like, yeah. When The Rock takes down a drone with an ambulance, I'm like, he could do that.
That makes sense.
So, yeah. And and to me, it's because
the only one.
It's because I've started 1 and made my way to 7. So at this point, my brain is in Fast and Furious universe.
We've evolved.
Yes. We let ourselves get into that universe for the movies. But my friend watching just the 9th one, he's gonna be like, what is this?
Race Wars.
Yes, love it. Race Wars had a comeback this movie. We'll get to talk about more Race Wars.
Comeback. Yeah, they did.
Bailey's still petitioning that that's what we name our podcast, Race Wars, the Fast and Furious podcast. I told her some of our audience won't like it, but she says, you know what? It's the best name out there. So
and apparently Drew thinks he can speak for me. I'm just kidding.
Well, I am a man.
Oh.
And we are on a Fast and Furious podcast.
You're right. I'm sorry. let me know my place.
So.
Anyway, we...
Where do we go?
We're
what
Switzerland here. It's okay. We are all for the girlies and the guys and everybody. So, y'all, we're just here to hang out.
Yeah.
Chill out and enjoy some Furious 7.
Yeah.
So, let's kick it into it.
This movie, Fast 7, or Furious 7, you got to get those titles right because they're so easy to remember.
Exactly.
Was directed by James Wan, who's not Justin Lin. And the reason he didn't direct this was he was directing a different movie. A lot of people think he was like completely done by 7. That's not true. He did get done shortly after that, but
he did get done.
This was that I said that so correctly. Yes. We only use proper grammar in this podcast.
Yep.
And so we had all the regulars come back, and then we added some pretty big name actors here. We had Jason Statham, who played Deckard Shaw.
I love him.
He was great.
He's my favorite.
Yeah,
he's my favorite part to the entire thing. Actually,
he nailed his part so well. And kind of fun fact, so he came back as Deckard Shaw. He was originally asked to be Owen Shaw from the first movie, but he was filming a different movie, and thankfully they were like, okay, well, we'll have a small scene of you to suggest you for the next movie. And so that's how, but that's kind of cool that they had him first for the, so that was pretty cool. They also had, this was a great addition in my mind, Kurt Russell, who played Mr. Nobody.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, the secret agent guy who with the Heinesens,
right.
That's Kurt Russell, yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's right. Because I freaked out when I saw him. I'm like, who? Why?
I forgot about him until I watched it this time, but now that we're kind of looking at it a little bit more closer, one of my favorite parts of the movie was him. I thought everything he did in this movie was perfect. And I just loved that. So we just said how the movies get more ridiculous.
Yeah.
And they own it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they don't even give this guy or his organization any kind of subplot. There's
Nothing.
like Mr. Nobody. That's his name. It doesn't matter.
He's like, it doesn't matter.
We don't even care anymore.
I'm nobody.
This is just a guy who has a thing that gets you to what you want to do.
Yeah.
And I just loved that his character was them, the directors or the producers or whoever being like, this is just a guy who's important, but we're not going to give you any more details.
Yeah, I really liked how that went actually, because he's like, I'm the shadow people, like I'm part of the shadow people.
Yeah,
I'm just Mr. Nobody, and that's all you will know.
And he just was light humor and fun.
I dig it.
So yeah, it was cool. And then we did have and I might not pronounce her name, so if you listen to this podcast, sorry about it. Nathalie Emmanuel, who played Ramsey, and of course she comes in for this movie and further in the series, so she becomes part of the family. They also have other actor. I mean, this one had like at this point they knew what they were doing. They were just bringing in actors. So they had Djimon Hounsou, who played the other villain who wasn't Deckard Shaw, Jakande. And he was a big name
that
actor
guy.
too.
Yeah, he was cool.
He was cool. He was a good. Both of them.
He was scary.
Both of them were good villains. I'm not gonna lie. I forgot he existed until I rewatched
very
this.
silent,
Yeah.
ominous.
Good evil dude.
Yeah.
And then of course, wouldn't be Fast and Furious without MMA fighters. And so they had Ronda Rousey and Tony Jaa, who was the guy who fought Paul Walker or Computer Paul Walker. Yeah. MMA champs for sure. One of my favorite scenes was when before the Letty Ronda Rousey fight, when she comes in and Letty just beat up the person, and she's like, "Would you believe I beat him up with my charm, or I knocked him out with my charm or something?"
Right.
That was a very under. I don't feel like enough people laugh at that scene. I was with my friends watching it, and they gave no reaction to it. I was like, "Really? That?"
It was funny.
Yeah. So
she's being facetious.
Yeah. And then, of course, this is the movie that Paul Walker died during the filming of it. So, and I think they did the best they could possibly do with this movie, to represent Paul well, to tell the story well of his character. They used their technology the best. I mean, so we did have actual scenes of Paul Walker before he died, but then we had CGI scenes, and we had scenes where his brothers came in and were doubles, and just kind of a mixture of all of that. And all of that still looked better than the CGI Lucas Blackface on. Oh, I'm never calling it Lucas Blackface ever again. but when that scene when they brought it back to Tokyo Drift a little bit,
He's a man now.
I was like, wow, that was just those weeks of drift kinging for
it really did
Sean Boswell.
Man. This was from this movie, because we talk about the year every time. Actually, was this from 2015?
This was 2015.
Okay. So, because the last movie, Tokyo Drift, which one was that?
Tokyo Drift would have been 2006, I think, honestly.
Okay. So it's been like 8 years. Yeah. 8 to 10 years.
Yeah,
this
and
guy.
He already was an old man when he was playing a high schooler. And now he's like a geriatric.
He was at least a young adult as a high schooler.
They did their best with CGI. It was just funny because, I mean, we have to be honest on this podcast. They were fantastic with Paul Walker and everything. They did CGI there. And they did their best with Lucas Black.
But it's okay, because Lucas Black was there.
Yeah, it was cool. It was still cool to see him. It's still cool to see him. I forgot about his accent for a moment, and then he was like, "What are you gonna do when you find him?" That was the worst. I can't do it. But so this movie did come out in 2015, and I've been holding on to this story since season 1. Episode 1. Because we always talk about where were we in 2015 or when the movies came out, and I actually have a very specific story about 2015 and this movie coming out.
Take the stage.
So here's the deal. I also 2015 was a rough year for me. I got into like 3 or 4 car wrecks.
Oh my gosh.
I went through several vehicles.
Yeah.
And in November 2015, which was when Paul Walker's car wreck, that was when I accidentally drove my car off of a bridge, off a highway, landed upside down. It's pretty bad. Miraculously, my car blew up, but I was fine. And I know that I promise this gets to it's still going to be a dark joke, but I promise this gets to like a nicer.
There's the dark jokes for you people that want Drew to be dark. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Tune into our podcast if you really want it, if you really care.
Yeah. So at the time I was about 3 years into comedy, and this was actually when I won my first comedy contest. All right, so the way
good for you.
Yeah, it was nice.
Cool.
But here's how it happened, because maybe not good for me. Maybe I compromised values to win, but it's still a story. So it was this weekly comedy contest. It was called The Funniest Person in Nashville, and if you won, there was like no budget behind this. So if you won, they gave you a Fresca, and for a week. And I kept this freaking Fresca through 3 moves. I'm not even kidding. Like, I had it on my dresser. I was so proud. I'd worked so hard for it. So the way this contest worked was, it was a regular open mic show, working out stuff. But then at the end, the audience got to give you one topic, and every comedian who wanted to participate had to come up with a joke on the moment. And then the person with the best joke won the comedy contest. So naturally, because all comedy audiences have no souls, just like the comedians they're watching, this was the week. This was the week Paul Walker died, and so their topic was Paul Walker. And so I remember being up there and knowing I had a joke come to mind. Right. But I also was like, but this is Fast and Furious. It's Paul Walker. Can I really compromise my values for the sake of winning a contest? And the answer is yes, I can. So this was the joke that won me the contest. Are you ready?
Let's go.
Okay. I don't feel like you're going to like this joke, Bailey. I just want you to be mentally prepared for you might like, this is the closest we've been on a podcast, but this might also be the moment where we become the furthest. Anyway, so here's the deal. So I tell the audience, I say, listen, I love Fast and Furious. I've been a big fan of it my entire life. But I feel like me and Paul Walker have always been kind of in a rivalry that he doesn't know exists. And he's always been winning, and that kind of bothers me. It's like, so we both wanted to look like Paul Walker, and he won on that count. We both wanted to make out with Eva Mendes, Too Fast, Too Furious. He got to do that. But this month we both got in car wrecks, and I'm still here. So I guess I won in the end.
Well, yeah. I mean,
and that's terrible.
You did.
And I won
but you
the
won.
Comedy contest with that joke. And now they're going to... Yep, that's fair. Yeah.
That's how that feels.
Yeah, so anyway, that was my joke that won me my first comedy contest.
Wow.
And might send me to hell. I don't know.
Well, so Fast and Furious saved and killed Drew.
Yeah.
But not like...
Not like what? You gotta commit.
So, and he's segueing back into episode of the podcast.
So before we get into the AI plot summary, what were you doing in 2015? Where was Bailey? Help me if you were in the hospital.
I was
again.
14. No, because we were kind of like out of that finally. Like 13, 14, I was finally like, getting out of that. Finally able to start more of, I guess, kind of like, I don't know, being a normal kid.
Yeah.
I don't really know what I was doing at 14. 14's a weird age. I don't really remember much.
What are any of us doing at 14?
I mean, what do you do at 14? You sit at home and you do your schoolwork, but you can't drive yet. But you're old enough to want to drive. You're also old enough to want to technically work, but you can't as well because that's not legal because of child laws. So I don't know what I was doing. I was probably just doing a lot of schoolwork. What grade are you in 14? Is that ninth grade?
Ninth grade? Yeah, ninth grade.
Ninth grade? Yeah. No,
Freshman
nothing
year-
important. I was
freshman year
probably
kinda
freshman year sucks. Yeah, that's all. I felt awkward. Just got out of middle school. Also awkward. I had long hair past my tail, which was crazy.
Going for the homeschool Christian look.
Pretty much. That's what it did look like, I guess. So really not much going on. I think I was playing soccer, and that was about it. Going to church youth group.
Nice.
Yeah.
Anyway, so now we're at the Furious 7 plot summary. We did another AI plot summary. This time, as recommended by Bailey for you all, it's last month. For us, it's like 2 weeks ago.
Literally.
We're filming this on I want to say July 5th or 6th. And you all are listening to this at the end of the month. So hope you all had a great July. We don't know if it's going to be a good July. We don't even know if podcasts are still going to be a thing by the end of July.
Things move so quickly now.
So if somehow in the next 20 days, podcasts have become the most offensive thing on earth, I just want you to know we didn't know about it when we auto-posted this episode. Anyway, so our AI plot summary for this month is we asked AI to tell us the Furious 7 plot summary.
Yeah.
In a romantic manner.
Exactly.
So I'm interested to hear your opinions on this, Bailey, because when I read it the first time, I was like, there's a lot of not correct things, but at least they're trying to be romantic. So I'd love to hear your feedback or after you read it. Whatever. Just do whatever you want.
All right. Well, let's dim the lights as we get a little romantic here as we go into the romantic plot summary of Furious 7.
I feel like I'm going to throw in some
Yeah, Furious 7.
You have to read it romantically, or
That's
I
right.
don't.
All right, starting now. Furious 7 is a heart-wrenching tale of love, loss, and the unbreakable bonds of family. The film opens with Deckard Shaw and a former British Special Forces assassin seeking revenge against Dominic Toretto and his crew for the severe injury of his little brother, Owen. Deckard's rage and grief drive him to destroy Dom's home and kill Han Lu, a beloved member of Dom's family. That's his last name?
Yeah, and his middle initial is S, so they literally made him Han Solo. Just for fun, because it's freaking Furious 7 and they don't even care anymore.
I love you guys. All right, anyway. Dom is consumed by a burning need for vengeance against Deckard for Han's senseless murder. He sets out to track down Deckard, but their dangerous game of cat and mouse puts Dom's entire family in the crosshairs. Letty Ortiz, Dom's soulmate, struggles with her amnesia and the fragments of her past, making her question her feelings for Dom. Aw, that's true. When you don't remember somebody. Meanwhile, Mr. Nobody, that's actually his name by the way, offers Dom a deal. Retrieve the God's Eye. A surveillance system that uses digital devices to track a specific person, and he'll help Dom take down Deckard. By the way, it tracks him from every camera and everything. So he's like, yeah, you got a camera on your phone, boom. You got a camera in your house, boom. You got a camera on your TV, boom. So that's how they find him, supposedly.
I feel like nowadays we're like, oh, so you mean every camera and phone out there? But back then that would have been also never
boom.
Once when they were running away from God's Eye did anyone think, let me turn off this phone and go into a barn. Boom, just solved Fast and Furious 7 I would have been
just go off the grid.
Yeah.
Dom agrees, knowing this is the only way to protect his family. It really is, though, supposedly. He reunites with Roman Pierce and Tej Parker, and they join forces with Mr. Nobody's team. As they embark on their perilous mission, Dom and Letty's relationship is put to the test. Letty begins to recall pieces of her past, seeing herself with a different man, further complicating her feelings for Dom. A different man?
What? I don't think that's true.
I don't think that's true. So that's wrong. Dom, fueled by love and determination, vows to help Letty remember and reclaim their lost years together. I think them saying a different man was just them trying to be creative with their linguistics or whatever.
If I can speak for AI,
Yeah.
which we already decided was a woman, so technically by Fast and Furious standards, it's allowed.
No.
I think Letty was feeling like a different person than what Dom was remembering. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of why she's like, I need space. She was like, because every time you look at me, you see someone who I'm not.
Exactly. So it's the same in the other foot, too.
Yeah.
I mean, so that makes sense. That makes sense. Dom, fueled by love and determination, vows to help Letty remember and reclaim their lost years together. That's okay, cool. The team faces unimaginable odds. This isn't really as romantic as I thought.
Yeah,
I'm kind of disappointed. But whatever. The team faces unimaginable odds as they battle Deckard and terrorist named Jakande, who wants to use the God's Eye to gain control over the global surveillance system. Deckard is driven by his desire for revenge, while Dom fights for the love of his family and the chance to build a future with Letty. I think it was just focusing on Dom's love for Letty, really. I think that's what it did.
Which has, like, so little to do with the plot.
It's so little to do with the plot line, though. That was mainly actually the last movie more so.
Yeah.
But all right. In the end, Dom and his crew pull off an incredible heist in Abu Dhabi, and Dom finally gets his chance to face Deckard. Their intense fight ends with Dom emerging victorious, but instead of killing Deckard, he shows him mercy, a testament to his unwavering belief in the power of family. The film concludes with Dom's crew gathering by the beach, mourning the loss of Han, and celebrating their victory. Letty gets back in the car with Dom, finally ready to embrace their love and
She doesn't. It's okay.
I don't know. Finally ready to embrace their love and the life they always dreamed of having together. Supposedly. Brian O'Connor is playing on the beach with his son. A heartwarming moment symbolizing that he will always be part of their family. The film ends with Dom driving off into the sunset at peace, knowing his family is safe. and that he and Letty have a second chance at love. I looked at Drew during the family is safe part for us podcast car listeners, because for those of you that haven't caught up yet, Paul Walker's dead. So at the end of that scene, by the way, I don't know if people have noticed or if this is me overthinking things, but I am pretty sure they broke the fourth wall at the very end scene
100%.
When they were like, just look. All you have to do is look.
Yep.
And I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You're talking about something else.
They, at least twice in the movie, they broke the fourth wall, and really, I felt like it was great.
So, Letty...
Yeah.
Her emotions, sold it for me.
There was that
So
last
authentic.
scene where when they do the flashback and they do him talk like Vin Diesel or Dominic Toretto talking, even though he's talking about Brian O'Connor, you can tell that it's really more of a respect to Paul Walker. And I love that last scene. And they were very intentional about the scenes they picked in the flashback with and how it connected to the different characters. You saw them break that whole breaking the fourth wall, at least in that scene, started when they were on the beach and all of them were like, everything's different now. I did think everything they did with Paul Walker and the sentiment, it was intentional. It was powerful. And another thing I really liked, this was more of them thinking about it as a movie versus like the respectfulness to the actor or whatever.
Yeah.
Because I remember this when we saw Fast and Furious 7. You didn't know how they were going to address the whole Paul Walker's dead.
Yeah.
And so one pervading theory was there's gonna be an on-screen death for Brian O'Connor.
Yeah.
And if you remember in the movie, they gave him so many almost
opportunities.
Deaths. And so that was, of course, it is a bit of a letdown that the last thing we see Brian O'Connor do that's like significant and saves the world is plugging in his phone.
What?
Yeah, so that last scene
I don't
when
remember
he's
that.
rushing, I mean, there was a cool fight scene going up the stairs, but the whole thing was he's running with his phone to plug it into a thing to reinstall God's Eye or like to rehack God's Eye. So like his big heroic moment was taking the phone out and plug like it's a charger.
Oh my gosh.
After all the
After
big
running
things
up a
like bus or whatever, yeah.
Down a cliff and
let that be a lesson to all of us that it doesn't matter in life. Sometimes you want to do the running up the buses. You want to do the jumping out of a plane, parachuting in your car. You want to do these incredible moments, driving backwards in your car, looking at Eva Mendes with full focus and not looking at the. You want these epic moments, but sometimes the moment that the world needs you to do is plugging in your phone at the top of a staircase.
Exactly. Plug it in and then leave it. Don't need
it.
Put your phone away, except when you're listening to us.
Yeah, never put your phone away when the Quarter Mile podcast is on. If anything, break up with your girlfriends. Tell your friends to stay home. Just listen to our voices.
Exactly. Just listen to our voices.
Speaking of voices, let's talk about some fast fan feedback. Some voices that you all shared with us. So we had some really good feedback. I'm going to share some of them. I have one that one person dropped us a comment on Reddit that was like, I was like, this could be the movie review. This could be the
love
episode.
Reddit so much.
So one of my friends, I think this is the best one by far. Hard not to get choked up in the end. Also loved the villain in the movie as well. They knocked this one out of the park. I agree.
I agree to that too.
Good job. Deshaun, you're correct.
7 in heaven, baby.
Yeah, there we go. It's the perfect number and the perfect Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah.
Then Peyton, also from Facebook, who we hadn't heard from in a while, so I was glad he's still alive.
Thank you.
So he said, good action-packed movie with a good storyline. However, really unrealistic, like hitting each other head on. That was funny.
Yeah.
And then they did it a second time. It's like, what did you think the results were going to be? And then, so like hitting each other head on. Then in the end, when the Charger hits the Aston Martin and takes no damage whatsoever. In the theater, my dad said, showroom shine. I don't know if that's how he said it, but that's when I read it, that's how I picture it. So
sounds pretty legible.
Yeah, I feel like that's exactly. Peyton, let us know if that's how your dad speaks. I feel like it is.
That makes sense.
And then our buddy Zach, also from Facebook, said Fast and Furious 7 was one for the ages with lots of emotional pressure to live up to as Paul Walker's final Fast movie prior to his death. It honestly felt like they toyed with the audience's emotion, putting Brian in so many scenarios, which made you think, is this how they kill Brian off?
Yeah.
That I felt the same way when I watched it the first time. Not to mention the incredible scene at the end with the white Supra driving off into the sunset, like the old-fashioned spaghetti western. Yeah,
you're right though.
Absolutely, yeah.
I mean, this is our American spaghetti
Fast
western.
and Furious
honestly.
is western for.
I mean,
yeah,
we are technically western.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Americans invented westerns. Got it.
Heck yeah.
As you said, Drew, that's me, by the way, the movie completely denies reality with the car stunts, almost giving it a Mission Impossible with cars feel.
Yeah.
Or Avengers with cars. Or there's so many things, like parachuting from planes, jumping between buildings, passing passengers from one vehicle and another under a small bridge to avoid the aircraft. I could almost see Tom Cruise in the brainstorming session. I would love it if Tom Cruise was in a Fast and Furious movie. Fast and Furious Mission Impossible crossover. Let's do it.
That'd be a cool crossover.
Overall, a fantastic ride and tear-jerking ending that Wiz Khalifa nails with See You Again. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. Honestly, same. And then Zach Elias with a nice positive commentary. Love your work, y'all. Thanks for another quarter mile to enjoy. I think that makes 1.75 miles now. Good job.
Aw, 1.75 miles. That's cute.
Yeah, I like it. Zach's a cool guy.
That's cool.
All right, then this next one came from Sarah Quell from Reddit. And this could have been our AI plots. This could have been the plot summary, honestly.
Probably better.
So she says, I love 7. It's tight and well-paced. It has genuinely good emotional family moments, and it has a great villains, actually, Deckard Shaw and Mosey Jaconde. Deckard Shaw was the best villain antagonist in the entire franchise, in my opinion. He was an indestructible badass who was only stopped because they blew up a parking garage and it collapsed on him. I hate it when that happens.
Literally. All the time.
Yeah, bummer. Of course, he's played by Jason Statham, who is a real-life badass, and so I'm not surprised that Deckard Shaw turned out to be so indestructible. facts.
Facts.
When they hauled Shaw off to prison in his final scene, he didn't even have a scratch on him. Legendary. And he was doing it to avenge his family. So he was like the anti-Dom. Yeah, but it's true. That's what makes him such a good villain. Is he is literally Dominic Toretto if Dominic Toretto pissed off Dominic Toretto.
Right. So. And he's a lot of depth.
Yeah.
A lot of people after him, apparently.
Yeah. He was,
Shadow.
Yeah, he was part of a shadow organization, a rogue soldier.
Yeah.
Just a fun character.
Cool.
I do think Hobbs and Shaw adds to his depth a little bit. Naturally, they had to redeem him and to bring him into the franchise family in the next movie because you just can't hit a guy who's motivated by his love for family.
Right.
Mose Jaconde was also a strong villain. Either one of these guys could have carried the story, but having two strong villains like this in the film made the story more thrilling to watch. You never know which one of them is going to pop up. There were fabulous driving and stunt work scenes through the entire film. Ramsey's God's Eye device was implausibly powerful, but very cool. I think the only silly moment, I'm glad that she only caught one. The only silly moment for me was Dom driving the car through a couple skyscrapers. Excuse me, that was a great moment.
That was great. I believed that one.
There were a couple of skyscrapers, but even that sequence was well shot and fun to watch. I didn't even blink when they parachuted the cars out of a plane onto a scary mountain road to rescue Ramsey. There were strong family moments throughout the film, too. Letty got her memory back through the power of love. She literally, Brian was resuscitating. She was like, stop bringing him back to life. My memories will heal him.
Literally. She's like, I remember. Somehow he came back.
About time. That was my worst Vin Diesel impression.
That's the way that he thought he was going to get her memory back. He's like, let me just fake my death.
He probably did it all on purpose. Like, I didn't really die.
I'm going to do this to her like she did to me.
How's it feel? The film ended with a powerful, bittersweet, emotional homage to Paul Walker.
Yeah.
The series has not been the same without him. They could have easily stopped with 7. Everything after 7 feels like a different franchise. I like 8 because it's fun, but 9 and 10 don't interest me at all. For me, 5 and 7 were peak Fast and Furious. Sarah, I completely agree. I hope you make it to Memphis to crap on 9 with the rest of us. I hope I would love your insight on that.
Absolutely.
This movie really did feel like they were ending the series. It had a lot of tie-ins to earlier movies. I loved my favorite tie-in, I don't know if you noticed, it was like subtle. And I didn't notice it until this rewatch. But when they were doing the bridge chase scene and Paul Walker's like, we're going to take it old school. And then he somehow drops his wheels in a way that doesn't make sense. And then they started driving under the trucks like they did in Fast 1.
Yeah, like they did in Fast 1. That's how I thought. Yeah.
I thought that was my favorite scene.
There was a couple things, though, that I felt like were a little bit of callbacks. I just can't remember all of them.
Well, so when they were on the bridge, they used a lot of the scenes.
Obviously, they brought up the sandwich thing again.
Yep, the sandwich thing. The Hector from the Race Wars who got punched by Letty.
Race Wars. He was going to Race Wars.
Yeah. They did like where he was like practicing his driving in Fast 1 were some of the scenes they'd used.
The house.
Well, it's not there anymore, but it was. Yeah. I loved at the end when they were like trying to have the sentimental moment and they were zooming out on a completely destroyed house. It was like speaking of completely destroyed,
how many bombs was in that box? Because here's my thing. I'm sorry, not to interject.
Oh no, please interject.
But let's take a moment here, real quick, and think about some mathing. Okay, that box he set at the house, first explosion that we are presented in the movie, right? Not really technically the first, but like the big boy explosion. We're like, okay, that's crazy, right? All right, so then later on in the movie, we see that they put these big boy explosion things in a bag, not to ruin this for you guys.
Spoiler alert.
If you haven't seen it
we forgot to tell you that we're going to talk about the movie in this podcast.
Hobbs goes and he puts it in the plane, whatever. There's pretty much like the last of these bomb explosions. That is obviously Deckard Shaw's explosion things. And
he loved his grenades.
Oh
my goodness.
But we saw maybe like it's about 10 to 20 in a bag or something.
Yeah.
Maybe. Puts it in there, whatever, explosion happens. Here's where I get confused. How many bombs was in that box compared to the amount of bombs in that bag? Because I feel like that explosion that happened with the aircraft was way less than that house explosion.
They had like a whole vest full of grenades in the aircraft.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's been a while. / I've never bombed anyone before. But I feel like
really?
whatever.
You
yeah,
sure?
I know. I've bombed a lot on stage, but I never bombed an actual building. So that's. Stay tuned next month when we talk about the fate of the Furious and I talk about my first act of terrorism. That's terrible. Is that how we get? We're gonna get canceled. So this is the episode. This is the anyway. I just feel like maybe like whatever kind of bomb or material he used in the box was like a bigger, more explosive, more CO2, more. I don't know.
Pissed off,
dude. He knew what he was doing.
Why? Why waste it on that house?
I loved the scene with Deckard Shaw where they found him on the God's Eye. They brought in all the people, and he's just in there eating a meal.
Yeah.
And he's
like, hold on.
Which, I don't know if your brain thinks like this, but like mine does, where it's like, so he got there early and set up the food. Like he's chilling. At some point he cooked food where he Uber eated it, and like he brought it there. And he had to tell someone, okay, I want you to set up my table right there.
Yeah.
In this warehouse. And they're like, do you need anything else, like a public place to eat? Like, no, trust me. This is
it.
And then I do feel like this movie had the two potentially dumbest lines in the series. I'm sorry, what?
Last meal.
What is it?
It's going to be your last meal?
So, yeah. He's like, is all you brought? He's like, I'm insulted. Yeah. So when Deckard Shaw revealed he was working with the other guy, he's like, friend of my friends, my enemies. And then Dom said, like, I don't got friends. I got family. I would have loved for Deckard Shaw to be like, okay.
He brings in like this scary guy with all these people. I mean, I'm going to be honest here. As much as this is my favorite movie, it still doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Of course not.
How did they win?
How do they ever win?
He has a bunch of terrorist friends. Like, seriously, all these people are like, got the military grade smarts, experience, and tech, pretty much, and the bodies to beat them up. And they have more people than the family that Dom has. But yet,
they always win. Family wins.
Family wins.
And then, to me, the dumbest quote in all of Fast and Furious franchise is in their final fight when he's like, "Thing about fighting on the street, sometimes the street wins." And then he stomps on the ground and it takes him down.
He had the higher ground.
It's like, but see, we're 7 movies in, and part of my brain is like, well, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the Hulk, but in Dom's body, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. At one point he becomes a I mean, bullets don't hurt him. Car crashes don't hurt him. Although he did technically almost die this time.
Right.
First time in 6 movies that we've seen him get hurt.
But by that, he literally reversed his way back off of a cliff.
Yeah. Do you think anyone...
But almost
I would have loved to hear like Tej or Roman be like, come on, you've been through worse.
You've been through worse. Like, was it just the last straw? Like, the straw that broke the camel's back? He's just like, oh, this is way too much for today.
Finally, all my pain's catching up to me.
Yeah, it's like all of his adrenaline. I guess he just sat down for too long, and his adrenaline caught up.
So, it was, speaking of, you mentioned the Hulk, which makes me think of The Rock / Hobbs.
Oh, gosh.
I thought this movie had the perfect amount of him.
It did. The daughter scene was pretty cute too.
Yeah. The daughter scene.
Sense.
Every time they kind of they use that to make him like humanize him a little bit. But I like that.
Yeah.
And then I mean that scene where him and Deckard Shaw are fighting, but he's just like, hold on a second. He's like, you're not the IT guy. And like it's like,
Duh.
And then they get in a fight, and because of contracts, they don't finish the fight because neither one of them can be seen losing a fight, because after The Rock or Vin Diesel had that in our contract, all the other action hero actors were like, we want that too. And so now, if there's ever a fight scene with any of the main actors, it always has to end in a draw or a heroic moment, because you could argue The Rock didn't lose. He took a bomb to save Elena. But
technically he didn't die either.
Yeah. So I do love. I mean, I enjoyed Hobbs and Shaw. I enjoyed that dynamic between the two. I thought that was a good. They're just goofy, testosterone filled.
They
dudes,
really are.
Yeah. Fun fact: when he's in the hospital and right before he busts out of the cast and goes save the day, he's watching football footage. And one of my favorite fun facts about this movie is that footage is a game he was in when he was a football player.
Are you serious?
He's just watching his own footage. Turns it off quickly.
I mean, it did give me game plan vibes.
Yeah.
In that part,
yeah.
So it could have been
movie.
It could have been very strategic.
Yeah,
Honestly,
no, it was just at this point they're like, whatever, let's have him watch a game of himself.
Yeah, let's kind of throw it back a little.
This is peak Fast and Furious
That's
making
cool.
fun of itself movie is what it is.
I like that.
And he did have one of my favorite Hobbs lines, which was when he shows up after casually crashing an ambulance into.
And breaking his cast off by flexing.
Yeah. When Letty was like, "Did you bring the cavalry?" and he's like, "Woman, I am the cavalry." I loved that line so much. That might take the cake for my favorite Hobbs line, and he's had some good ones. Of course, I mean, finally this movie brought back women being objectified at a race in tight clothing. I know that was what you've been missing so much.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up, Drew, because here's the thing about the objectifying of the women. In this movie, honestly, when they brought it back to that, the women were way more clothed. I mean, there were definitely a couple of the shots or whatever, but I probably, if I was playing a shot game at the time, which I don't do that really at all, if I were taking a shot game, I probably would have only taken a couple of shots, honestly. Whereas if we were in the first or second movie, absolutely. I would have been hammered after 2 seconds.
I think we talked about that for the second movie.
So I think they're getting socially aware. They're starting
that's the difference between a
2001
movie versus a 2015 movie.
Which is, I mean, it makes sense. It's growing with the times. It's having to adapt. We're in a different culture.
Yeah, they were making fun of that masculine, chauvinistic, when the joke, the movie joke was when Ramsey showed up, both Tej and Roman were hitting on her, and when Roman was like dibs, they made fun of that. Whereas I feel in 2001 they were like, well, he did call dibs. I guess I'll back up. So that is how women work. So
it's kind of like that shrimp restaurant, the bar. What was it? The third or second movie? Too Fast, Too Furious.
Yeah, they did have shrimp.
I think so. It was like that.
Yeah.
That
where they were
dibs.
Yeah,
he had dibs.
Yeah, that where they were all the women
Eva
just dancing. Yeah, absolutely.
Mendez.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not there anymore. So good job, guys.
Way to
progress through the times.
If you want to look at how society has progressed, Fast and Furious, man, the movies, and the movies are gonna keep going. Once we get to Fast and Furious 100, who knows? Who knows what life lessons will be learned by Fast and Furious?
It's all going to be made by AI if we have 100th Fast and Furious.
Paul Walker will be back.
Yeah, everybody's going to be back, honestly.
One last job.
There's a lot of explosions, which I myself really like, by the way.
Yeah.
I love explosions. I love things when, the car racing is really cool and fun, all that stuff. Yes. But the dynamics of the fight scenes and the contrast in the way how things would go from scene to scene and the way they would change things, I really liked that because it wasn't just I'm beating this guy up in a race or I'm beating this guy up because he's a bad guy or whatever, but this time we're in a random party scene and we're having to be secretive like little agents. Or I'm in Dubai jumping through 3 giant towers or random scenes.
After Vin Diesel picked up the car with his
right. I will mention that though. They kind of made him seem more human in that because Paul Walker was making a joke. He's like, how you got this? You got this.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder how long you got this. He was like taking his own time, and Dom's just like,
Yep, he looked like he was
like,
struggling with it. Yeah,
struggling a little bit. But I'm like, okay.
but also
I
like,
can believe that.
if that car's bulletproof,
Then
how
it's
heavy?
Gotta be super. And also the fact that it went through all of that. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a good job on those muscles, Vin. That's all I'm saying. You were talking about the fight scenes. I thought that they do a really good job with the fight scenes. And I mean, yes, they're over the top and ridiculous, but you can almost, just like in the original Fast and Furiouses, like you could tell the characterizations by the cars they drove.
Yeah.
When you watch the fight scenes, you could see the characterizations of the characters through how they fought. Like
It's their own style.
Yeah, and I thought that was kind of cool. Like watching Michelle Rodriguez fight Ronda Rousey. You know, you already knew Ronda Rousey was fighting, but like seeing this like street girl just like go down.
Pulled out that little knife.
Yep. And then, you know, Vin Diesel and Jason Statham when they're fighting, and like
with
one
the street stuff.
right. Yeah. One's using the wrench and the, you know, and
The wrench. Come on, Dom. You know how to use that, buddy. We know about that.
Yeah, he brought.
let
I
us
love how
down.
he brought the gun out. We see this big moment where he's like sawing off his shotgun and getting prepped up for it. Takes one shot. It's like, nah, I don't need this.
Nah, don't bring a gun to a sword fight.
I don't got guns. I got family.
Got both guns right here is all I need.
Yeah, got thunder and lightning. Don't get crossed in the storm.
Kerchow.
Yeah. And then Deckard Shaw busts out a windshield wiper blade, which I don't think that could be a weapon, right? Like that.
Yeah.
I don't think that's like a blade,
It's
like
plastic.
a sword. Yeah.
So I don't know.
But in the hands of Deckard Shaw / Jason Statham,
Anything's
it absolutely
golden.
could. So
Whatever he touches turns to gold.
I did have a few things that I pointed out that I guess I would call them lowlights or dimmers, if you will. And first for me, the movie started with such a focus on Han's death.
Yeah.
And then by the end of the movie, I completely forgot about Han and that they were like starting to do this for Han.
Yeah.
And like nobody ever was like, we avenged Han, or like, or I miss Han, and let's not even forget about who cares about Giselle at this point. They were like, they were like. So I think it's because even in the Fast and Furious universe, they're like, they're not really dead. I mean, we come back from death all the time. Like,
they didn't even bury Giselle, is my thing. They buried Han and put Giselle's picture on his burial coffin.
Maybe she was in the coffin too. I don't know. Probably not. That's weird.
I want to be buried together.
I don't know. I think I go backwards and forwards because I do think the Letty memory loss / remembering thing was kind of dumb. I kind of forgot about her in the movie. Like I felt like she was kind of like she just kind of appeared at random points. And
we probably could have done without that.
Yeah.
Honestly, like without the whole memory loss thing, I don't know. I feel like that was a weird reset.
Yeah, but I like her so much as a character that I was like cool with it. I was like, all right, that's fine.
Either way, she's still here, so
yeah,
we're good.
I just feel like she has. She definitely has the most like character development of all the female characters.
She does, yeah.
And I would say she's like top 3-ish of, you know, all the other characters. You know, like, so she's definitely.
I'd say so.
But she was one of the OGs, so that makes sense. So
she's just not a girl's girl, so I don't know.
Which fits in Fast and Furious. They're like, we're gonna give her the social status of a man.
It totally fits. Yeah.
All those action sequences were fantastic. They
were so good.
In the last one, they had 2 big ones. This one, they're like, let's have 3 big ones.
Yeah.
So I feel like by 8, it's just like it's one big action sequence. The whole movie is just action.
Movie. This was one of the ones that I remembered a little bit more of, anyways.
Yeah.
But also, like, I wasn't upset because The Rock was in it at about a decent capacity. Just enough. And again, it threw in a little bit of funny little, like, I mean, did give me game plan vibes. So it was kind of like a little dose of childhood regardless.
So here's some Furious facts for y'all. So first one, over 230 cars were destroyed during the filming of this movie.
That makes so much sense.
I saw that and I was like, that seems low.
It seems pretty low to me too. Parachuting out of, I don't know.
Yeah. So we talked about Paul Walker and how they kind of included him in this movie. Some of Paul Walker's dialogue and footage were taken from the previous Fast and Furious films. For example, Brian's conversation with Mia in the Dominican Republic garage is actually a deleted scene from Fast 5. Similarly, the plane conversation between Dom and Brian has every shot of Walker rotoscoped from the conversation with Dom about their fathers in Fast 5. So that, but think about this though, Mia, acting, still had to act after Paul Walker died in those scenes. She was listening from recordings of him from 2 movies ago. That's got to be not fun.
That's still, yeah.
Yeah.
That would still definitely be pretty rough.
So Furious 7 is the first film in the series to reach $1 billion at the box office.
Makes sense.
This film is the second highest grossing motion picture released by Universal Pictures in the history of the studio.
What was the first?
I don't know.
Huh. Y'all look that up.
Someone tell us what the first movie is.
Mm-hmm.
This is my favorite random fact because we both talked about how we enjoyed Too Fast, Too Furious and goofy storyline.
Mm-hmm.
So John Cena Tiempo, I'm not sure if I'm saying that correctly, who played Corpy in Too Fast, Too Furious, the driver of the blue Yenkin 69 Camaro, lost to Brian. So one of the Puerto Rican guys or Italian guys or whatever.
Yeah.
He can be seen briefly as the driver of one of the black Mercedes-Benz AMG compressor S55. Of course, we all know what car that is. In the mountain chase scene. So he was one of the drivers. Just randomly in the...
I mean, I will say, I saw a couple of faces that were pretty familiar to me, so it could be some sort of thing where I subconsciously...
Good for you. I had no idea. Like
maybe. I'm good with faces, though. I'm not good with names.
Next time I watch it, knowing that that's a fact, I'll look for it, and I'll probably notice it, but I genuinely had no idea. So, but that just goes to show you that maybe this one was meant to be the bow to tie the whole series together.
Yeah.
They were just bringing in all the stops, whatever, getting people in. But that's kind of fun. So
that is fun.
Yeah.
Familiarity. I like that. That's cool.
Yeah. Movie and villain ranking. Let's do villain rankings. How do we feel? Also, you tell me how we should do this.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to count 2 villains here, or do we just want to count Shaw as he was the main villain for this?
I mean, I think it's 2 of them.
Okay.
I think it's 2 of them. That guy was pretty scary. He had a good vibe. He had a good villain vibe.
Yeah, they both could do. Okay, we'll give this movie 2 villains, and we'll rank. So where do you want to look at your rankings?
Jeez, yes.
Well, yours over
I
there
already
if you
know
want,
what my number 1 is. So I already know that Deckard Shaw is number 1. I mean, he's definitely the best villain.
Yes,
he's definitely the best villain. I would probably put Jakande. Honestly, he's probably tied. So he's probably just it's probably just Deckard, Jakande, Carter, Owen, Braga, DK, Tran, and then Reyes.
Yeah.
Tron
yeah.
Legacy.
Tron, good movies.
Good movies, yeah.
Terrible villain, but good movie.
Gosh, that. Ugh.
I'm gonna deviate from what I normally would say.
Okay.
Right. So, my problem with Deckard in this movie.
Oh.
Even though I loved his character, it was he just showed up at random times. They could have avoided. They could have just chosen not to help Mr. Nobody and just waited for him. I mean, the argument was well, how many more people are going to die before you do that? But he wasn't very good at killing. I mean, aside from Hans, he wasn't very good at killing them. He missed a lot of shots.
He did.
Literally. And his whole motivation was, you injured my brother, not killed. You put him in the hospital. Which I love that scene where the first scene you see him where he just destroys an entire hospital and he's make sure he gets the best care he can. And they're probably well, if you didn't destroy our hospital, maybe we could have. But anyway, so I'm going to actually put him under Owen. So he's my number 2. He's my number 2 because in my brain, Owen had more of a villainous story. He was the anti-Dom, literally, he was all about strategy, and all that. And then he kind of goofed at the end. He kind of got a little more manic at the end as his plans were unraveling. But to me, he was a better villain. I understood him more. So, but I do like the other Shaw, as well. So Deckard's gonna be number 2.
Okay.
Jakande, I'm gonna, he was good, but I didn't care about him as much as I did Owen, Deckard, and Carter. So he's gonna actually be my 4th spot.
Okay.
But yeah. So I'm going to have a hard time with next month's villain because if we just had 8, to me, she would have been the best villain in the entire series. Loved her. But then, the problem is we have 9 and 10, and she's still a little bit in those movies, and I feel like they make her less villainous.
That sucks.
Yeah. I mean, I remember leaving 8 thinking that was the best Fast and Furious villain. But then the rest of the movies happened. I'm or not. So, anyway. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Movie rankings. This is my number one.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
To quote, semi-quote Parker Flack, Furious 7 all day, every day.
All day, every day.
Yeah.
We love you, Parker. Thank you for being on this podcast.
Yeah, that was a good episode. But yeah, so this
Go check out that episode on
yeah,
episode
number 5. We had
5.
an awesome guest who knows more about cars than
both of us.
Okay, I was gonna say at least me, but for sure.
Definitely both of us.
But cool. So did you say this one was also your number one?
Yeah, this one's definitely my number one. It's the one that I saw in theaters, actually.
Yeah. I saw this one in theaters too.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a good one.
Because I don't know. I don't think I saw the other ones in theaters. I don't believe so. Welcome back to Bailey's Best Bits.
Love it.
Where we realize my favorite bits. So this is, I'm actually telling y'all what it is. It's the fight scenes. Yeah. So these are my favorite fight scenes because we have a lot of fight scenes in this movie and a lot of very good fight scenes, if I might add. I mean, honestly, what I'm upset about the AI plot summary is the fact that it didn't make the fight scenes romantic.
No, it did not do a very good romantic job. I feel like they nailed happy and angry, but apparently robots don't know much about love.
But instead, it was sleepy and dopey.
Yep.
So
nice.
That was bad. So, anyways, the first one, of course, I'm just gonna go in, time relevance. You got Hobbs versus Shaw. Obviously, that's a movie. So, them in the wasn't that like The Office? The
they were in his
office.
He was stamping all night, still incredibly sweaty, like he just had a workout before.
That's where
that was funny to me.
That is where he was eating his last meal. So, whatever. So obviously, since nobody can beat The Rock, you got a very large and long fight scene. So that was fun. And then you've got Ronda Rousey. Kara apparently is her name.
Oh,
I don't remember them saying her name, but when I looked it up, it said Kara. Because I couldn't even remember if she had a movie name. I was like, what was her character?
Security guard.
She was just security guard. Also, they were definitely like Red Barons. It was all of these WWE like MMA looking women. But I was like, those are the Red Barons, man. He's got some Red Barons. That's pretty cool. If y'all don't know what that is, that's pretty fun. So, the Ronda Rousey versus Letty fight, that was pretty epic. Yep. And of course, that was also a lengthy one. Also, I found that on YouTube, and I wanted to interject and say a YouTube comment that I found that said, the actress who can't fight versus the fighter who can't act. So,
I mean, I thought she did okay for her part.
Yeah. If you're a is she an MMA or WWE?
MMA. Or both. Okay.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
Thank you, Alan. I don't know if you guys
because WWE it definitely has the cheese, so that's cheesy. So is The Rock. But the next one, Dom and Shaw's fight as well, which was like the final street fight. But they fought each other already. But I wanted to just highlight mainly the last. So it's the last street fight one.
Yes. Yeah.
So you've got the Hobbs versus Shaw, Ronda versus Letty, and then the Dom versus Shaw. So
cool.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. I know already what I'm going to guess, but I'm afraid that you're tricking me.
Okay.
Because I remember in Too Fast, Too Furious, I was just as certain about my answer. And I was like, this is it. And then you had played me. And because like you went through the most detail on the answer that I'm going to pick. But that could have been your way of like messing with me to make me think. But see, like to me, even before you mentioned them, I was like, this is going to be the one she picks. And like, I'm potentially making the same mistake that I made like 5 episodes ago, which is going with my gut, which has gotten me into many problems in my life. And this might be one of those, but also that like my tragic flaw is there's a little guy in my brain that's like, no, you're right. Go with it. Always go with your gut. Yeah. And then like immediately after I hear a voice being like, what were you thinking? So my gut is firmly telling me, and it's because I also agree with it, that the best fight was Ronda versus Letty. Or excuse me, Kara versus Letty.
Supposedly Kara versus Letty.
So Am I right?
No. I did the Dom versus Shaw one, actually.
That makes sense.
Because it's like the big fight at the end thing that really like put Shaw on the ground.
Yeah. So, yeah. It was the most
actually
it was the most
in
grounded
the
fight.
Not like actually dead though.
Yeah. He survived it.
He literally is like looking up through a sinkhole and he's like, hello. You know, you can still see him. I'm like, all right, well, we're just going to forget that this guy is in a giant hole.
Yeah, he makes it through. He's fine. We have another quarter mile spotlight for you. If this is your first time listening to our quarter mile spotlight, basically, we love uplifting and kind of shining a light on creatives we think that are doing well and doing cool things that we like and they're friends of ours. And so we just kind of let you know. And then if it's something you're interested in, there's ways you can learn more about it and participate in it. So this month, our quarter mile spotlight is a good friend of mine named Josh Gilmore. He runs a group called Highwater Comedy. Highwater started in 2023 as an Instagram account to share event announcements and video clips of local comedians to generate more interest in comedy shows in the Memphis area. In September of 2023, we were asked to produce our first comedy show at the Memphis Current, and while producing shows isn't what we set out to do, we decided to accept the challenge and produce The Inside Joke on October 6th, 2023. Since then, we've been working with some of the best talent from across the country. I'm one of those best talents. To create a unique comedy experience for our growing audience, promote and incubate up-and-coming comics, and produce YouTube and social media content, and grow our local community. So he's doing some amazing things in Memphis comedy. Yeah. Memphis comedy has a special place in my heart. I did comedy there for 6 years, and I absolutely love their community. And he has 2 shows that I've been part of. One's at Eggs Up Grill in Germantown. It's a wonderful brunch place. Also has great comedy once a month. And he's partnered with the Clean Comedy Collective, which is my group that does comedy there. Then he has another show, a weekly show at Tony's Trophy Room every Sunday night. And I just did that one not too long ago. The last time we filmed a podcast, so like 2 weeks ago for us. 8 weeks-ish for you guys. Anyway, and that's a wonderful show too. So if you're in the Memphis area, and statistically 16% of you are, those are shows to check out if you want to. And we'll link all of his stuff. Highwater Comedy does a lot of awesome things. And lastly, Josh's thoughts on Fast and Furious. He said the first film is a classic. Even though we car enthusiasts make so much fun of it when it came out, the franchise has gotten pretty wild, but it works well for comedic effect.
It really does.
It does. It's a fun, goofy movie. At this point, no one watches the movie and be like, well, that's accurate. But we watch it and we have a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
But Josh is a great Memphis friend of mine. Speaking of Memphis, don't forget Memphis, Tennessee, High Tone, September 21st.
Yep.
We're doing our live action, live audio recording, live audience recording. What do we call those things?
Just a live show.
Yeah, it's gonna be a live. It's there. We're filming our episode in person, and we're
for free.
All of our Memphis friends. We hope you come out. It's a great spot. If you haven't been to the High Tone yet, you really need to. There's also a comedy show happening right after the show, so like you could make a whole night out of it.
Yeah.
So,
call it our family discount.
Yeah, we'll give you a family discount. If you come to the podcast, we'll let you go into the You Look Like show afterwards, which I'm in. I get to roast people. It'll be fun. I'll be representing Team Nashville. I'm bringing comics in, and it's a roast show. So,
oh my gosh, so show up for that too.
Yeah. Well, guys, that's been our episode. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. This episode will come out in a few weeks, but that's not important to you because you'll hear it when it does come out. So this is episode 7. We had a lot of fun. We can't wait to talk about the fate of the Furious next month with you all. So we hope you tune in then. And as always, live your life a quarter mile at a time. Enjoy a podcast. Have fun. Do something. Create something. Just enjoy life, especially now as we're going into election season. Everyone's like hating life right now. Ooh. And this is just your friendly reminder that life is meant to be enjoyed. So have a good time, and we'll see you next month.
And Vin Diesel for president.
Yes. Let's do it.
I'm just kidding.